Hey everyone, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? It's Thursday, so it's time for another Facebook/YouTube live. So we're going to talk genealogy today, and I see, hey Dave, thanks for showing up again today. I'm excited to be here again today. I am, again, on the move, not in my home office, but that's okay. I do apologize if it sounds a little echoey where I'm at. I've tried to use the earbuds to cut down on some of the echoes, so if you're hearing a little bit of kind of echoiness around me, it's not your computer. It's just where I have to record today. So just don't worry about it. So welcome. This has been an exciting week really here at Are You My Cousin? I was able to do a joint Facebook Live with Find My Past. So Jen Baldwin over at Find My Past and I on Tuesday, a couple days ago, did our Facebook Live together about searching for Irish ancestors and specifically using Find My Past to do that. I learned so much, and I have been, as I've worked with Jen on some of these presentations we've done. She knows an amazing amount of knowledge when it comes to researching Irish genealogy, as well as obviously working with Find My Past. She is their North American acquisitions person. I don't remember her exact title. So we had a great time, and I learned so much from her, and I think you guys did too. So that replay is available. If you did not get to hear that or see that, don't worry, because you can find that replay. It is actually on the Are You My Cousin Facebook page. It is on the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel, but it's also, you might prefer to check out the blog post I just posted today. So just this afternoon, like within the last hour, and I've dropped the link here in the comments for you guys, is the blog post with the show notes. So it kind of gives some of the highlights as well as all of the links to the record sets and record collections that Jen and I talked about. So that's kind of it'll be a little bit of shortcutting for you there. So you guys might want to go over and check that out if you have Irish ancestry and Irish research that you want to learn a little bit more about. I think you'll find it very helpful as well. Hey Dave, as I said, I'm so glad that you could join us. And hey Barbie from Alberta, Canada. Yay, Pam, you're from Alberta, Canada as well. Wonderful. I'm actually, normally I'm in North Carolina. Today I'm in Tennessee talking to you. And so I'm just super excited to be able to do that kind of thing. So let's start talking. Oh, hey, Linda, nice to see you from the Jersey Shore. Hey, Mary Jane, good to see you again. Mary Jane, you don't have any volume. Is everybody else hearing me okay? Let me know if anybody else having issues, or is it more local to Mary Jane's computer? So if somebody wants to drop that in there and see. Okay, so perfect. If somebody could drop in the comments for me, have Mary Jane log out and come back in and see if that'll help her out there. That might help her get back in a little bit better. Oh, my link is not complete for that. Oh, is it? It should be. Okay, let me try that again. Thanks, Dave. I'll double check that page. Let me just grab that again. I checked it earlier before I got on. I have had a little bit of tech issue today on my website that I have worked on, so it's possible that's not doing it. So let me try that again. All right, I'll drop that link in again and see. Okay, and we'll make sure that, oh, it's not letting me test it out. All right, so that should do it. That should be complete. And let me just double check and make sure I sent that thing live. I did. Yeah, I did. So it should be good to go. Again, I just did it within the hour. So wonderful. Okay. So Mary Jane's good. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, great. Hey Lee. Hey Danny. Good to see you. Wonderful. Okay, great, Marcia. Thanks for letting me know. Everything's working well. It works when you click on it, but not when you copied it. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why that happened, Dave. That is weird. I'll look into that next. I'll look into the formatting on that before I do the next one, for sure. Okay, so here we are. We're going to talk immigrant ancestors a bit, and this is a little bit more of kind of some of the thoughts that I wanted to expound a little bit more on that Jen brought up in our webinar on Tuesday, or on our Facebook Live on Tuesday. What I want you guys to think about, though, is even though she and I were talking about Irish genealogy research, the concepts oftentimes are the same regardless of what country or what area, region we are researching in. And so I wanted to bring up a couple of the concepts that she brought up that are really near and dear to my heart. We've chatted because I think she and I'll probably end up doing something more on these types of things. But I wanted to bring these up and see kind of what maybe you might be thinking about as well. One of the points that she brought up that I thought was very, very important is that specifically with Irish ancestors, she made the comment that we need to understand, we have to know where the county is, where they were from, before we can really start getting into the Irish records. She said otherwise it is almost impossible to make that connection without knowing where the county they came from. I will tell you right now, that is exactly where my brick wall is. I shouldn't call it my brick wall. Jen told me I should call it my opportunity for further learning. But that's exactly where I am stuck on a particular research project, because I don't know the region. But this applies to all of our ancestors when we're trying to make that connection from our North American research back into Europe or to whatever country they came from. I struggled with that. I have an Eastern European Jewish line. It's actually my husband's side of the family. And I struggled with that for a long time because of obviously the history. He was, all we knew was that they were from Russia. That's all the family knew, was that they were from Russia. That was the only thing that had ever gotten passed down. It was the only records, they were the only records that I ever actually saw. So, but I knew that given the time period, the late 1880s, early 1890s, that, who knew exactly what Russia was, that was still with the history that was going on. And so it did me no good to research in Russia for that ancestral line. I had to really understand and use the North American records to find out where they came from, what region they came from, before I could make progress back in Eastern Europe. Digging through that, some of you might have heard this story before, but digging through that, I did discover that they came over, that the 1930 census, which was taken, decades after the immigrant ancestor came over, a good 15 years after he had passed away, it was in the children's enumeration of the 1930 census record that we discover that region was named. The town and the region and the town were named where he was born. And so that was how I was able to make that connection. So it is possible to find where they're from, but it's almost imperative to find them where they are. So wanted you guys to kind of sit with that and think through that a little bit. Let me see if I see some comments. Oh, hey, Chris, yes. So think about that. Now, when Jen talked about that, she's absolutely right. And the first thing she said was that, Irish research starts at home. And I would venture to say, immigrant ancestor research or overseas research kind of starts at home, because it can be within those records, those home records, these North American records that we can find people. So certainly in that case, I was able to use census records, and I actually helped another researcher do that recently, doing some one-on-one coaching with her. So where I would ask you to look is to think about that ancestor, whether Irish, whether German, whether or whatever country you're researching in, and think about, what do you know about them? Do you know, as Jen says, do you know where they bought their shoes? Because if you don't, you still need to keep researching to do an exhaustive search. But the point being, how much do you know about their life? Okay, do you know what church they went to? Do you know what their social causes were? Do you know what was important to them? Do you know where they shopped? Yes, you can find out where your ancestors shopped. I've used merchant books before, and when she talking about where did your ancestor buy shoes, I actually have the merchant record book out of I think it's New Jersey, that, oh no, I'm sorry, it's Connecticut, have a Connecticut book that I found on Ancestry. He was a merchant. He sold produce, but he was also a shoe salesman and cobbler, so he fixed shoes. So it is possible. And what that gives you is your ancestors' community. Then you've got to really dig into that community. You've got to understand, why is your ancestor in that community? What is it about that ancestor that drew them there? Was it because they all came from a same region or village? If that is a tendency, and you find this out by reading the history of a community or the history of an area here in North America. If you're getting clues that there was a large migration from certain areas in Europe, that could be a clue to start wondering, could that be where your ancestor was from? Look at the neighbors. So if you're thinking that a large number of them came from a specific county in Ireland or a specific region of, say, Spain, wherever, then you want to start looking at that community deeply. Look at the neighbor then and say, okay, well, if they also came from the same country, then maybe they came together. Maybe they settled here because they came as a group. Where did that group come from? So if you don't find it on one, find somebody else in the group and follow them out. No, they're not your ancestor, but could they have come along with your ancestor? And if they did, that's going to lead you back to a region. All right, let me see. I see some things popping out here. So Catherine said her Irish ancestors came before 1800, and you found nothing indicating where they might have come from. They're probably in Ulster, as none were Catholic. Yes, and that's an area, you're definitely into an area I'm not as strong on with that. What I would recommend was something like that. And this is another thing that Jen brought up. And I actually had a chance to talk with Jen after our Facebook Live, because I had some questions about my own Irish ancestor. And her comment to me was, reach out to the Irish American Genealogical Society or American Irish Genealogical Society in the DC area. That's the area I was looking at. So it might be that you want to look, Catherine, for the region that you're researching that Irish ancestor. Reach out to the some of the Irish American or American Irish genealogical societies that are out there and see what their recommendations are. The reason it's a way of basically, I call it networking genealogy style, but that way you can reach out to some of those who have more expert knowledge and who have been deep into the research. The other thing would be to reach out to the Find My Past forum that Jen had mentioned and ask in that group, because they may have some ideas as well with that. I would also recommend that you guys, if you are researching and trying to find those little nuances, would be to read the blogs of the major genealogy companies. So Find My Past has an excellent blog, and that's where I go a lot of times, because they have a lot of how to get started in a certain particular nationality. So maybe how to get started researching your Scottish ancestors or that type of thing. So I like to go there, and they'll usually talk about new collections there as well. MyHeritage has some great ones as well with their new record set. So I like to go and check out some of the record sets, as well as just some good basic genealogy. Ancestry has a really good Ancestry Academy, which is free, guys. You don't need a subscription to the blogs or to Ancestry's Academy. That you can go and get full-blown webinars on that topic. I know they do have one for Irish genealogy. I can't remember the other. I think they have one on German. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they have a number of different webinars there as well. And Find My Search has a really nice blog, as well as some of the how-to type things, as well as new records that are out that they have either expanded collections or actually made new. So that would definitely be a way to check for those. When it comes to some of those super early Irish ancestors, Catherine, and those who were perhaps Protestant or not Catholic, I think sometimes what we have to do is get into the history of the area and really try to figure out why, maybe not where they came from, but why are they in that particular area. And that's the part that can get us stuck sometimes, is why are they there? If you're researching a female, that gets even trickier. It may be, if you're looking, oftentimes when we're looking at our male ancestors, we're looking at maybe it's occupation, maybe it's job type thing. But the first things I tend to look at are who migrated into the area, what churches are there, could that have brought people in, what is the main occupation, what occupations brought people into an area as well, for that type of thing. So that's sort of where I kind of start and kind of how I do my hierarchy for going down to figure out why they're there and where they may have come from. The other thing I try to do is, and this is all about, learning the social history. I learn about the place, but I'm also going to research that time period for that region to find out what was going on. Was there a war? Was there going on? Was there a drought going on that would have affected them? Were there hurricanes that may have shifted people around? So that's going to help you kind of figure out why people are in a certain area, because they typically will go together and that kind of thing. To kind of give you an idea of some of my thought processes, again, when I'm doing research like this, and I'm going to use my Irish ancestor because she is, not only is she a sticking point for me in my research, she's also a female, which makes it doubly hard. She was from Ireland, and she came over inland. I do know, well, I'm 90% sure that she came in through DC. So what I had to think about was, in my research, was how did she end up from DC, Washington, DC, into the foothills of North Carolina, where she is the only Irish-born person in the census record. I know who she married and all of that great stuff. So honest, I'm not getting a lot out of those, the North Carolina records. I just can't quite get enough from her, those records, and the community records, although I have researched that community a lot. So then I had to really think was, okay, she came in through DC. She would have been early 20s. The oral history says she was a widow, which I've come to think that might not be accurate. So I have to keep that in mind, that she had a child and that her husband died coming across. Maybe true, maybe not true. I don't know. But if she came in through DC, then I need to know, what would a young Irish woman be doing in DC, maybe pregnant, or at least with a young child? Where would she go? Who would she go to for help? Where would she live? What kind of job would she do? I've got a 2-year period when I've got to figure all this out, because then she's married and in North Carolina. But what would she have done? She gets off the boat, and that's literally where my head is on her. And I'm thinking through that. So what I'm doing in the process is, the first thing I did is to research Irish immigrants into Washington, D.C. in 1850-ish, 50 time period. That's what I'm looking at. So right now I'm just reading history. I'm reading history books basically and history articles. I'm not even looking at her records of her. I'm just reading because I need to understand where they were. And specifically, I'm looking for female records and what would have happened. What was the journey of that young woman coming over? So that's kind of where I go and that's the point Jen was speaking to with ancestors is, do you know where they bought their shoes from? And if you do, then you've done an exhaustive search. If you don't, you've got more research to do. Exactly. I need to know more research. I need to know what she would have done. So that's the level of research that I get into, and a good old Google search can get you a long ways with that, just so you know. Kayla said she has a German surname, Sipsey, I like that name, and cannot find out where they came from. Is there a way to find out if they've shortened their name or not? Sometimes, Kayla, with names like that, because you're right, they'll change the surnames or the spellings, all of that. Sometimes I will just do Google searches on, say, maybe alternative spellings for Sipsey. I might German equivalent for surname Sipsey, that kind of thing. I would probably do that. I would also I would reach out to other German researchers, and there's some really great Facebook groups of German researchers. You can ask in the Are You My Cousin Facebook group, certainly. I would reach out to some of those and ask them and tell them, you know, this is what I've got. Are there other variations of names? Do you have any thoughts of where else I should look? Because there could be some, I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear the siren outside my window, but it's so loud. They might be able to know some of the smaller websites that I'm not as familiar with, but they might be able to direct you that way and help you to solve that out. Sometimes when you talk to either a German researcher over in Germany, or just a group that has had years and years of experience in that particular topic, they have they kind of get that innate sense of the names and the research, and so they may be able to direct you there. But I would absolutely reach out for that. You can just go on like Facebook and say, you know, at the search bar and search for German genealogy groups. You can also search for German genealogy groups on Google, or German genealogy societies on Google, and you'll find them both on both sides of the ocean for that as well. So, and if anybody knows a really great one off the top of your head, feel free to drop it in the comments below. That would be great. Hey Bridget, glad you could join us. So, so that's kind of, this is a lot more, I think this is a lot harder sometimes, the concept to really kind of get your head around, because it is not fast research. This takes a really long time, and it really takes sitting with the history and connecting to that that history and really getting the thoughts on that history. Bridget said there's also a good Facebook group on Prussian genealogy. So that's thanks Bridget, I appreciate that. That would be really helpful for some folks too. So yes, absolutely, do that. I find reaching out to Facebook groups just to be incredibly helpful. People are incredibly generous, very helpful, and are willing to share their knowledge. So I think that's a really great way to go about doing things. So yes, so that would be what I would recommend you do. One thing, I had a conversation a day or so ago with someone, and I thought I just wanted to bring this up as kind of part of this. Sometimes we overlook court records, such as chancery records, you know, the ones that are really dealing with disputes among neighbors and, you know, neighbors suing neighbors, you know, the pig got in my corn and ate my corn, things like that, all of that kind of thing. You'd be amazed at sometimes the stuff that shows up in those types of court records, but oftentimes they are not online. But it is worth seeking those out for the area where your ancestor was, because they could have either been, you know, a main party in the suit, or they could have been a witness to what happened. And so those can get kind of detailed. You know, sometimes people really air that dirty laundry. So I would just, you know, as a reminder, I think we know to look in court records, but I would say go the extra mile for those court records if you can, and see who's in those court records. Really dig a little deeper in those court records. I think you might be be surprised at the types of things that you can find in there. So I would encourage you to do that as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. One thing I did want to share with you guys, because it came out on, I posted it on Facebook, kind of, I scheduled it, and kind of, then my site started having technical issues. So what I did, you'd probably noticed, I recently had been doing an experiment, which was doing genealogy coaching for a day, where you kind of rent my headspace for a day, and we work through your research and help you gain experience and move forward. So, and I do that using a Voxer app, but so I actually have a web page up for that. It's down right now, but it will be back up within a couple hours. So just wanted you guys to know that it's because it was already out there. If you click on it and it doesn't work, please just wait and come back in a little bit, and it will be up and running just fine. I just ran out of time before I hopped on here live with you guys, but it's a really fun project that I did, and it was successful. So I wanted to start offering that and kind of let you guys see that and see what you think about that. It's a lot of fun to be able to kind of go back and forth just over a day, where people can sit and think through what it is they're researching, what it is we've talked about without having to cram everything in 1 hour. So you can take a look at that when I get it back up. Like I said, give me a couple hours if you're watching this live. If you're watching this on replay, don't worry, all is good. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. Don't forget, you can hop back over and see that link to find the replay and all of the links over on the latest website on the Are You My Cousin blog. I'll pop that in there just one more time because I know it's kind of gotten down in the chat. And it's there for you guys to see. And again, you'll find all of the records that Jen mentioned. You'll find links to there as well. So thank you so much. Okay, Kayla, so she's going to go back and look. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Let us know and help us keep up with, keep us up to date on how you do with that name and finding that name. So I appreciate that. All right, guys, have a great day, and I will talk to you next week.